be here now. Just be here now.
Hey everyone, it's Raghu and I'm back with Mindrolling, another one of our special editions, anthologies, shall we say. And in this one, it's all around music. The first one is actually from an episode called Music as Ally, which is true to my heart in terms of what music can do for people and what it has done for me, as I've said many times in many different situations and many different guests that I've had talking about music. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of where some of this comes from, my partner, David Silver, who I started out doing Mindrolling with, is the first part of the anthology. And as I said, we talk about music as ally and talk about our major influences and so on. And boy, you shouldn't miss David talking about his time working with Bob Marley. I mean, it's just absolutely phenomenal, the experience he had. And we talk about Triloka Records, which was the label Krishna and I had many years ago, and the kind of music that we gravitated towards, and how basically, Krishna started putting records out on Triloka, and that established the fantastic, he wouldn't like the word career, because his career is as a devotee, not as a traveling bard. But he is some of that. He's out on the road right now, actually. The next episode is much more recent. It's with John Forté, and John, who was formerly with the Fugees, has this incredible record, and I just, everybody absolutely should get with it. And you just go up and on Spotify, Angels, Ancestors, and I forget what the last one is. It's a 3-part thing. Anyhow, just look for John Forté. You can see how extemporaneous this intro is, and but it's more around music as alchemy and John's Ramdas connection. 2 great songs on that album that he used Ramdas audio with. So, a fascinating story. Also, if you have not heard John's story of being in prison and how he just transformed his life through that experience. And then we get into Justin Boreta, and Justin did those wonderful meditations of Ramdas, putting background score to it. And they started our whole, really the whole thing we're doing with Soul Land music. And by the way, again, this is anticipating in the next week or so the release of our second Soul Land compilation. So we're excited about that. And then East Forest, who also was instrumental in the establishment of Soul Land music, and through his just divine recording with Ramdas, East Forest and Ramdas. And last but not least, because this particular musician, whose name is Trevor Hall, also known as Ram Priya Das, is part of the Greater Satsang, and we end with a kirtan that he did for us at one time. And it's unusual because Trevor is an amazing singer-songwriter, but he also is an incredible chanter. So it's I love these podcasts and the extracts that our people got to and put together to celebrate Soul Land music compilation. Number 2, it's got Rising Appalachia. It's got John Forté. It's got Jai Uttal, DJ Drez and Nico. It's got a Ram Dass single. Not really, but it's got a beautiful Ram Dass gospel song, We All Come From God, and many other tunes that are not appearing in my brain right now. But really happy to present this and hope you guys love it. And do any kind of questions about any of it, just write to info@BeHereNowNetwork.com or ramdas.org. Either one I will eventually see, and I will definitely communicate. So here you go. This is Mindrolling on the Be Here Now Network. See you soon. Welcome to Mindrolling, and I'm one of your hosts, Raghu Markus.
And I'm the other, David Silver, and I welcome you also.
We're going to talk this week about something very dear to both of us. We've worked together, I think we've mentioned this in previous podcasts, in the music area over many years, and David has been closely associated with some fabulous projects, which I'm going to have you mention a couple of them. And but here is our theme of this particular podcast, which is all about music as a transformational ally. We talked, I think, David, before I talked about my initial experience. The world was so oppressive, and it was only till Dylan came along that he could voice that oppression. And boy, that saved me, at 16 years, 17 years old, or whatever it was. And then I think I also talked about John Coltrane being at one of his concerts and for the first time having an out-of-body kind of an experience. I mean, an experience that I had no idea what I was going through. So speak to that a little bit, Dave.
Well, I think many people listening hopefully have had parallel experiences if they're of our age, and different kinds of process of listening to music and being transformed by it if they're not of our age. I also was woken up by music, by jazz. And my brother, who was 10 years older than me, turned me on to bebop music, Charlie Parker, Miles Davis, Jerry Mulligan, in the late 50s when I was still very young. And also for me, Coltrane, because he took that music and just expanded it and made it infinitely more flexible and exploratory. I saw him live with Eric Dolphy and McCoy Tyner and Elvin Jones at the Brighton Dome in Sussex in England, where I grew up. And my brother made sure that we were in the front row because he was fanatical about Coltrane, and I didn't really quite understand that at the age of 12. And after that concert, I was a changed lad. Because Coltrane was just, it's impossible to describe the live experience except by listening to the records. He just took that bebop freedom and made another level, took it to another level of incredible invention.
Well, he was such a spiritual character. I mean, obviously, and his expression was so connected internally. I mean, he was searching for something, and he was able to express that search, that internal search, in ways, of course, that very, very few artists, have done in the past. And if we're going to bring in artists of this nature, I would have to also include Ali Akbar Khan, the great Indian maestro who, at one point, Yehudi Menuhin called the greatest living musician in the world. He died only a couple of years ago. Now, these may be a little bit of new names to some people and artists that, in terms of Ali Akbar Khan, people may not have heard, and we highly would both of us recommend. I ended up working with him in the record label that both David and I worked on together, Triloka Records, and he I would say that was the pinnacle of any kind of experience I had working with somebody like this, who is a pure genius. And certainly the emblem for what we are talking about, which is, what are the allies in terms of music? What are those allies? How do they work upon us to allow that transformation to take place?
It's a very wide definition, because you can go all the way from pure entertainment. Because I remember when I was very young, my older sister and older brother and father and mother all listened to Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin. And I loved it. I thought it was liberating, actually, at that time, because it was American and I was living in England, which didn't have, any musicians of that caliber at the time. And we never thought it would have. So in the late 50s, that was a major part of my education, and my also feeling that life was more than just, the routine, the 50s routine. And it wasn't until the mid-60s, I think, that turned into something much bigger, much more internalized, despite the enormous popularity of the 60s music. I found it to be an inner experience, and that was my first real chance of using music, and it using me, as you called it, Raghu, an ally. I was just reading an interview with Bob Dylan in Rolling Stone, and he said something funny. He said that the old and the new come together in a magical way. You don't know when the old ends and when the new begins, but his definition was the 50s went on until about 1964 or 65, and he said that's when the 60s started. Mm-hmm. And coming from him, I think that's sort of gospel. Because even though Dylan is a bit of a curmudgeon and denies that he had anything to do with what people think of as the 60s, for the rest of us who weren't Bob Dylan, he had everything to do with it.
One thing that took place that you and I were involved with, and we've mentioned the world music label, Triloka, that we were very much a part of, and we were led into world music because, for me, I kind of, what you're saying right now about, not feeling it from, certainly Springsteen, you would have to say. To this day, you go to one of his concerts and you get into that heart space. Bono can do it as well. So there still is something of that nature, but these guys are from 70s or late 70s, so they're a bit of, throwbacks to that generation. But we were looking for, and I personally was led to this by Ali Akbar Khan and Music of the East. And then basically we got into this label. It was sort of, there was so much of this pablum-ish kind of new age music going on at the time that it was just awful, and we wanted an antidote to that, and that antidote was discovering incredible music from around the world that had that transformational quality that could become immediately an ally to it, and our wonderful engineer here, Bruce, is going to help us out here, and we're going to play a little bit of this track, which was one of the original tracks that we got going with Triloka.
Kufamba usiku loko jipele Kashia kimuti makwero Ndrilele shisha kufamba usiku loko jipele Kashia kimuti makwero Maria me utate kwa mani makwejo Yo Maria me utate kwa mani makwejo Shike wako konta mabara loko tupele utate kwa mani ngwaulwana Njilile si wako konta mabara loko tupele utate kwa mani ngwaulwana Maria Maria me utate kwa mani ngwaulwana yeah Maria Maria me utate kwa mani ngwaulwana
So this is a wonderful piece of music from a band called Orquestra Marabenta de Moçambique, from Mozambique. And this lead singer, whose name I don't recall, unfortunately, right now. This collection was on Triloka Records called Transplanet, which was a precursor to the famous Buddha Bar series that came out some years later. But unfortunately, this lead singer, he did die soon after this, yeah. So we lost somebody who was really great. So this is a good example of the kind of music that, even without understanding the words, that that what it is seeps inside your bones, you know, and it's a circular. I think one of the greatest adjectives you could use for what this ally is a circular feeling that becomes very trance-like and puts you into a one-pointed place where your discursive thought gets eliminated, and music is such a powerful thing.
Something just struck me, transformative trance. Trance is the first syllable of transformative. And I think that what I want to say here, we're talking about Keith Richards and Bob Dylan. That seems a long way away from Ali Akbar Khan and music from Madagascar. But I have to say that for me, the Beatles and the Stones and the Dead and Zeppelin and the Velvets and all of that, despite the fact that much of the music was no more than just different pop music. After all, the Beatles took their three-part harmonies from the Shirelles and from African-American music from Detroit, usually. They took it from there, and they were singing about, you know, I want to hold your hand. That's not exactly trance music. But there was something there, something magic, which put us all in a kind of trance.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it started for me and for many people. Some people who one would find very surprising would say the same thing. For those of us that were young in the 60s, and now are in our 60s, that music did more for us in blowing our mind.
Right.
Then, later, I mean, I wasn't a huge Dead fan. I had to be dragged to a Dead concert because I was English, and I liked foppish English bands like, Moody Blues and Procol Harum and the Kinks. I didn't want to see the Dead at all. Eventually, in 1970, I went to the Goddard Music Conference, and it was called the Goddard Media Conference. But the Dead played, and I couldn't believe the experience that we were having together. That the audience and the band were truly one. There was no proscenium arch. Yeah. There was no them and us. It was the Grateful Dead and all of you. And I got it. I never bought a Grateful Dead record. I didn't particularly like their records, but I went to many of their concerts. And they could be terrible, depending on what they were taking, how tired they were. But they could be transcendent. Yeah. And they definitely...
Jerry. It's all about Jerry.
Amazing, astonishing guitar player. But I know that I learned a little bit about music, using music as a trance tool, during those Dead concerts. I definitely did.
Well, I think we have an essential example of what trance music is. And this music, we're going to play a cut now, or part of one, comes from North Africa, and the two artists that are, it was called Asaruf, and Steve Sheehan, a very well-known percussionist, actually an American who lives in France, and Bali Otmani. I had to turn around and read that because it's not easy, but he comes from a Tuareg tribe, and actually all of the oral tradition or the musical tradition of his tribe was actually passed through women, which is very unusual. And there was in his family no women, children, so he was given the torch was passed to Bali. And he did this record. So their tradition is so much, it's nothing but a spiritual trance tradition. And talking about an ally, I mean, this we've talked very loosely in terms of many of these musicians from all of these different worlds, and how that is the common denominator, putting you into that particular state. This is transparently that. So here's a little of Steve Sheehan and Bali Othmani. But a small example of what we're talking about when we're talking about transformational music as an ally to becoming more present and transcending some of life's day-to-day drudgeries, shall we say.
I've got so many heroes and mentors and guides and advisors. When I think about the folks who held my hand through this journey thus far, it's not a short list. Not a short list. Musically, you talk about me being drawn to it. It doesn't even feel like that. It feels like we were never apart. my journey with music has been the relationship of having it, experiencing it, seeing it morph and take on different colors and shapes. And it showed me from a very, very early age that collaboration was going to be the key for the source of my continued inspiration. Working with others, finding that harmony. And so I've been collaborating long before folks knew that they were that I was in the band. You know, I was playing along miles and miles and miles away. But that's the spirit of it. The spirit of music is community. It's community and communication. It's air itself. It wasn't until a dear friend of mine named Rabbit, came to me when I was at my designated facility, Loretto, which is in Western Pennsylvania. And he came to my cell one day and he gave me an acoustic guitar that he'd gotten from the recreation department. He'd made a move and had gotten a guitar. I'm like, how did you get this guitar? He's like, don't ask me. I'm out of here. And I'm there with this guitar. And, Rabbit thought that he was doing me this amazing favor because here he knows me to be this musician. And he thought he was, throwing me a lifeline. And he was. But I didn't realize it then. I was like, what am I supposed to do with this thing? Because I didn't know how to play guitar. I looked at other friends of mine who were out there, but that wasn't my instrument. I programmed drums. I knew how to sample things, and I played violin. But the guitar, no. But a few weeks with that instrument taking up space in my limited space, I soon welcomed the conversation with it. And so I asked for friends and family to send me basic guitar for or guitar for dummies or basic guide to guitar, and just these tab books, which pretty quickly led to me teaching guitar in prison, even though I only knew how to play 2 chords at the time. The next thing I knew, I was teaching a guitar class to 12 guys, and they didn't know or care that I only knew 2 chords because as long as I could teach them 1 chord, that was enough. And so I started teaching them what I knew as soon as I knew it, rather immediately, and that ultimately very clearly helped me learn faster, more passionately, more profoundly. It was more purposefully.
Wow. So from being thrown off the cliff in the music business to it reviving you in that circumstance is pretty amazing karma.
Well, the business didn't, right? It wasn't the business. It's the music. It's the continuous thread of the music and that relationship to it. And so, in the 90s, right, my relationship was it was very, very commodification based. It was transactional. I'm going to show up and I'm going to get paid for my time. Thank you very much. You are correct in what you're getting at, and that is, in that environment, in the doom and gloom of prison, by striking up the conversation with this guitar, I found a liberation that I hadn't known before. And I'm not talking poetically. I'm talking very, very literally, and that is the ability to accompany myself as a musician. So prior to that moment, I was a rapper. I showed up and somebody would play the backing track and I would rap lyrics over it. And that felt good to me. And I did that at Radio City Music Hall. I did that at Carnegie Hall. And I did that at small little clubs around the world. And I was fine with that. But I always had to have a DJ, or I always had to have somebody. So it was in learning that guitar. My first song had 2 chords. Well, that's all you need. That's all you need. So it was off to the races from there.
Boy, do you look, just looking at the karma of that, and how it just turned you inside out, basically. And again, the connection with music seems to be the internal alchemy, right?
Well said.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's just amazing. And then, fast forward. I mean, I never thought I'd hear from you. And so you're going to have to explain that out a little bit. But suddenly I'm watching a video of a song John did not that long ago, a year ago, I'm not sure, Gone Guru.
Well, the original song that, that I did, and when I released that video, I think it might have been 2015, maybe 2016.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. But I didn't release it until last year on my new album, Rhythm Drive. Yes.
Right. So suddenly I'm watching and listening, and there's this whole connectivity with Love, Serve, Remember and Ram Dass, and I'm going, what?
Love, serve, remember, may you long last, and be here now, Baba Ram Dass.
Yeah. So,
and then I say, fly high, reach that disc, eyes open, go deep, be that fish. You're the fish down there.
Yeah.
It's going deep.
Yeah. All right. Well, how do you meet up with Ram Dass, basically?
I can't think about that without thinking about the adage that, I heard that said, our paths are deeply connected long before and after we meet. And I had been familiar with Ram Dass's likeness and even some of his words, because I read Be Here Now when I was away. But it's like they say, timing is everything. And so you could be proximate to the messages, you could be right next to the woman giving the speech. But if you're not ready to hear it and to receive it, you might as well be across town, and out of earshot. And so while I was aware, while the wisdom was on my radar for a number of years, it wasn't until 2015 that it really turned on for me, and there was a triumvirate of no, you know what? I'm not even gonna say it was a triumvirate because I was digging some of what Terrence McKenna was saying as well. So between Alan Watts, Abraham Hicks, Ram Dass, I was tuning into frequencies that felt really, really familiar time and time again. And so I'm seeking out these recordings, and the digital age has lots that we can throw rocks at, but the ability to be able to source information, and good information, is awesome. So I was able to find this library of this treasure trove of recordings, and I was transported. You know, I closed my eyes, I listened, I laughed along with the audience members. You know, I was in the room, and so me being a musician, but not just a musician, but a musician deeply rooted in the urban experience, I feel duty bound to take the stuff that makes me feel great and to put it to song so that others can also pick up on those ingredients, on those good feeling ingredients. And so I began very, very purposely and deliberately and with a whole lot of love, incorporating some of this wisdom into the music. And I remember very, very early on, a friend of mine got wind of it, and she called me like the day after I released the Gone Guru video, and she said, "Oh, I'm sure I'm connected to somebody within the Ram Dass Foundation. You know, I could do a little bit of work, and we could make the link." And I said, "Well, that sounds like so much." I said, "You know, if it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen." I said, "This will find its way," and you know, part of that grace is getting out of the way. Like once you create it. Now you just gotta pivot and say thank you and let it go, and I let that go, and I'll tell you, I was so surprised when I was happily surprised when I got a message from our mutual friend who had heard what you heard, and she saw what you saw. And she said, "Did you say Ram Dass in the song? And if is there any, you know, I'd love to connect you." And that felt a lot easier. It felt a lot easier this time, you know, a few years later. And you know, one thing led to the other, and now I'm added to the lineup, which feels amazing. And I'm psyched. I'm just psyched to be here.
But let me just say something. I mean, before we got on live, I said to John, now I don't want to be a gushy little guy here around. So I've heard the new music that John's been creating. There'll be an album that'll come out this year, and you're all going to hear about it one way or the other. I mean, it's really, really pretty great. But when you started talking about wanting to share through your vehicle some of what you have just that's brought forth out of all of this experience, the experience incarceration, the experience of some of the things that you were just bound to find through grace. Now, so some people get angry at me because I get a little bit I'm not so happy about new age stuff. Okay, when people are put into songs, the most all of this spiritual verbiage, which is so direct, and it feels like fundamentalism to me almost, you know. And I just tell you, you will all be so pleased to hear real poetry that reflects real wisdom, okay, in a way that it's just spectacular, okay? So I did my gushy thing. I can't help it, John.
Thank you, Raghu. Thank you.
It is real. By the way, I mean, listening, so much a part, I'm sure you realize this, but so much a part of many of these new songs. I mean, it's terrible we're talking about music. I hate talking about music without playing something. Can we play at least the Gone Guru song? Are we allowed to do that?
Yeah, for sure.
Because you have control over it, right? I won't get hit by Warner Brothers or anything.
No.
Okay.
Will you play it? Will you splice it into this conversation?
Yeah, right here. Right now, here you go, just so you all know what we're talking about. Here's Gone Guru.
may you long last and be here now, Baba Ram Das. Reach that disc, eyes open, go deep, be that fish. Transform, don't sleep unless you need that dip. Live without apologizing, be that rich. Get in line, get well, get rhythm. Get used to good living, yeah. It's like a line to a lemon, we've been here before, you just need to remember. It's like a lemon to a lime, it's revealed over time. The signs and the symbols, the cracks in the asphalt, stash in the dashboard, world in my palms, hacky sack with my passport.
Let's begin again.
It's so good. I felt like we were in radio just then. That's amazing.
Yeah, right. Justin, I love what you're doing with the Glitch Mob. I saw one of your things, the ethos of the Glitch Mob is empathy and compassion. And, that's a beautiful thing. And
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We ought to play a little bit of, so we talked about how Justin came to us and he said, I found this meditation, I want to put some music behind it. And I'm awfully judgmental person, especially around music, because I had a record label for about 20 years in LA, and I've been a music producer as well. And many people have taken Ram Dass's words and put music behind them and sent them to us. Some of it was just a hobbyist kind of a thing, and others wanted us to get involved with them in terms of release and so on, and getting it out to Ram Dass's audience in particular. And I had never heard anything that had that struck the chord between supporting what Ram Dass was doing, whatever it may have been in terms of either a meditation or a talk, and at the same time being substantial enough to take it into another transcendent place, so that the music and the words really came together. Anyhow, long and the short of it is Justin sent Rachael and I something, and as soon as I heard it, I went, okay, this man knows what he's doing here and has a real sensitivity and has put a really creative piece. So this has not been released. It's going to be the first time publicly that we've played anything. We're not, it's, as I said, it's just about a 30-minute meditation. And also there's a wonderful video that Justin and his friends put together that'll accompany it. And so here's just a couple of minutes to give you a taste of Imagine, which is the title of the track.
So in the next few minutes when I'm reading to you, try to find a comfortable place where you can be with your head, neck, and chest in a straight line. And you could be lying flat down, or you could be sitting up. Meditation is many things. It can be meditating on an object of meditation. Or it can be a process of letting all objects go by. The process now is to dislodge ourselves from our inordinate attachment to our own thoughts. Because as long as we're locked into our thoughts, we're always just one thought away from here. Since we've been talking about Guru-ness, let us us use this time together and this incredible spiritual energy that the sharing we're doing at this moment is tuning us into. To allow us all to get a little closer to the Satguru that is within all beings.
So imagine that just gives you a little bit of a taste of what Justin has done here with this track from Meditation from Ram Dass. And I personally cannot wait for people to be able to hear this, Justin. And actually, that's not the right way to put it. Experience is more like it. And I think that many, many people who have, when you say meditation, they go, whoops, I don't know how to meditate. I can't meditate. I can't keep, my mind wanders. Yeah, whose mind doesn't wander? That's what it's all about. I always laugh at that. But I think this gives people some really great access to go deep inside themselves because of the music. Krishna Das, who is chants around the world, he'll say all the time, the music and the rhythm and everything that's involved with it is the sugar coating to make the medicine go down okay. In this case, in the case the mantra, and this is very much the same. And I've already thought of, oh wow, I know what I could do with this. I can see people having listening parties where they're more of a, let's sit and meditate with this. And I kind of want to see what happens. So I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. That means a lot. And that's one of the things that that I hope people do when they listen to it is, this caveat is that try to never dictate how people consume music, because you never know. And but with this one, especially for our fans that may or may not have had meditation practice, I want to say something like, take a minute, turn off your phone, turn off your notifications, and drop in, or take 30 minutes and have the full experience with it. And I think the video too is a way, is another way in to the whole experience. And then what Strange Loop has done with it has, I think there's something about it that just, it calms you down, and the imagery that he used and the sense of the ocean and everything is a nice way into the moment. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Allows you to just settle in, and it's really well done. Okay. This is your first podcast interview, so go ahead. See what you got for him.
You're just throwing me into the water here. So I guess, Justin, with our generation, as Raghu calls it, 30-somethings, 20-somethings, how do you think that music, I guess music for you is a bit of a meditation, like when you're performing? Do you, I follow you on Instagram, and you always say, like, I'm praying to the music gods whenever you're on stage. So do you find that in a way is like a form of meditation for you? Or how do you, where do you go when you're on stage and when you're in that space?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's especially when we're on tour and there's been a really, a long day, or sometimes we haven't slept a lot, or the buses break down and we're playing a show at a festival and haven't slept. Everything's okay as soon as I get on stage and start playing the music. Doesn't matter what's happening, but as soon as I start playing those drums, everything locks in, and it's the same thing. So for me, it lines up very, very perfectly with my meditation practice. And the funny thing was that even before I had a practice, music really served that role for me. And I think, for a lot of people, it is that, whether or not they would call it that. But when you're listening to music, to really get the essence of it, you have to actually be in the moment. And it's something that we create that only exists over a course of time. And I think it is actually a framework of mindfulness and present time awareness for people that may or may not have had that sort of training. Mm-hmm. So for us, I try to put Easter eggs into our music. On our last album, there's a song called Way Out Is In, and that's just a little breadcrumbs for people to pick up back to the core of it. But at the same time, if someone, we try to be abstract enough about it to where also, if you don't want to meditate, or you don't know anything about it, you still can just enjoy the music for what it is, because that's my practice. But, I wouldn't want to force that on anyone listening to the whole thing. But it is interesting opening up a bit more about my own spiritual path and sort of the backbone with it in Glitch Mob through this process, and just in general, is that people are really quite ready for that, and much more than I would have thought. And I mean, a lot of people will write and have done work on their own, or even apps like Headspace, which are sort of mass access meditation apps. People are really ready for the whole thing. And there's a lot of really big podcasts out there, like Tim Ferriss show and stuff like that, where people are really talking about the spiritual practice. I mean, I just listened to, he has got millions and millions of downloads, and he had Jack Kornfield on there recently, which was such an incredible episode. So people are really ready for the merger of these two things. And for me, I think that, on one level, music can be a carrier of a message of this stuff, or maybe it's not, maybe it's just fun. And that's also really powerful too. So I try to do all of those things, where if it just sounds pretty and it makes your car drive a little bit better to work, that's great. Or if you actually unfold the layers over time and go deeper, then that's there too.
Right. So you just do your thing, and then hopefully something comes out of it, but there's really no expectation. It's just, you're just being in 100%. The moment. Yeah. I love that. And I know that you told me before, when Ram Dass asked you what you do with your music, and can you tell us a little bit about that? When you were
that was a really eye-opening moment, and a cool part of the conversation. So he had asked me, and that day he was actually, the day before I was supposed to meet him, and he had a fever. And so it was a Sunday evening, and I was leaving the following day, and Monday he was going to see me, which I thought was just so awesome. The fact that his cat was ill and he had a fever, but still here he was talking to me. And one of the first things I said was, he's like, "Oh, tell me about your music." And I said, I wanted to explain the bigger picture, sort of behind the scenes spiritual vibe that I have with the music. And we take, what I said is that we take the love that we experience from people and we send it back out as music. So there's a lot of people have the tattoo of our logo. People write us a lot of stories. We have a lot of fans that are in the military that'll write us and say that they listen to our music to get through the day, or people who are at work. So, we receive this, and then we metabolize it and send it back out as music. And that's sort of more or less what I said. And he said, you see that? That's your ego, which is taking something and then sending it back out. Your soul really just is that love, and there's really nothing to do there. And I was just it was a really great moment, because there's always the whole conversation was always finding a way back into the sense of unconditional love and to the heart. Because even in the moment of feeling like I have to do things, that lens has actually been quite helpful since then, after that conversation, just coming back and not really feeling like I'm here metabolizing this thing and processing it like an engine. I'm just being this thing, and then it's much more effortless.
Beautiful. Right on. I mean, that's something for all of us to work towards, obviously, because we're human and we think we're doing stuff. Yeah.
Right.
That just reminds me, we had, Krishna Das and I, a mentor from our days with Maharaji in India named K.C. Tiwari. We're actually doing a film about him. He was the greatest human being I ever met. Not counting Maharaji, couldn't kind of count as that. He was more, I don't know what you would call it, but if you could ever be with somebody where you absolutely knew there was nobody in there, no I, no me. I mean, it's staggering. But
it's just consciousness.
Yeah. It's like, it was crazy. But KC was just incredible. And he was like, there was an old comic book back in our day, late 60s, early 70s. R. Crumb actually did it. He's a famous cartoonist. Mm-hmm. And he had one cartoon called Mr. Natural, where Mr. Natural was going around making sure everyone was being here now. And he was incredible. And this Tiwari, K.C. Tiwari, was like Mr. Natural. He was an accomplished yogi, yet he was a school teacher, head of a school, a boys' school. And he'd be up at 4 o'clock in the morning beseeching the gods yeshiva and the mother, and they would come down because he had that kind of relationship. I never saw anything like it. I mean, he enjoyed doing that like we enjoy going to Haagen-Dazs. I mean, you know, it was a completely different experience. And anyhow, he used to say over and over, my boy, if you think you are doing it, you are lost.
We did the Mindrolling podcast. It was probably now at least a year and a half ago. It had to have been, because I was in Maui with Ram Dass recording him in June. It was June last year. So just about a year ago, a little over a year ago. And you and I just got to know each other on the podcast. And through that, I think it allowed me to have the courage really to I had this idea. And you went to India, and I was like, I was talking to Tim, my manager, and I said, you know, I really want to present this idea to Raghu. And I think I'm going to wait till he gets back. And I just feel really strongly that this could work. This could really work as a way of bringing Ram Dass's voice to life. And to your credit, thank God, I think it was also good timing. I mean, I did believe that I was the guy for the job, but I also thought it seemed like it was the right time, right place kind of thing.
Mm. Yeah, and also, we had done this thing with Justin Boreta of Glitch Mob, where he took a Ram Dass meditation from just, it was a long time back, this particular meditation that Ram Dass did in 1973, just after after Neem Karoli Baba had left. So we had a precedent that I thought was worthy of being more open to, because Justin did a fabulous job. But that's when I said to you, yeah, we'll give you a bunch of material and you can go through it. And what did you say?
I sort of graciously was tried to convince you that going to Ram Dass and recording more recordings, which sounds absurd, because how many hours of Ram Dass speaking is recorded that you guys have in the archive?
It's so many gigabytes that we couldn't count them.
I heard it was like 50,000 hours from Rita or something like that. I mean, some insane number.
That might be a little high, but you know, it's an insane number. Yeah, because they recorded everything over, you know, these 40 odd years.
Yeah, and so I knew it was a crazy ask in a way, but I also, here's why I asked it, because one, all the field recordings, and I think of like recording people talking as a field recording. It's like all the ones I've used in my music have been ones that I've recorded. And what's special about this, it feels like these are the colors I'm given to paint with. This is like what the universe is giving me to work with. And then I can that's it. And so I thought it'd be beautiful if not only could we have Ram Dass sort of choose what he wants to talk about that's relevant to today and now, and capture him from this place of cumulative wisdom, but also it just felt right. You know, it felt like giving it over to Maharaji too. It just, at the time, I don't even think I was fully aware of, but kind of saying, I need to let this flow kind of through me, where I'm just sort of an orchestrator, as opposed to me going through an archive and choosing all the things, all the little sound bites. That's too much of my own decision in a sense. I wanted to hand it over to something larger than myself. And in turn, what was cool about it, I think the story of this record now very much is that it's Ram Dass today. And it's when people hear the songs, when I hear the songs, especially people who've never heard of Ram Dass, they hear a voice of wisdom, and the wisdom is just seeping through the character of his voice. And obviously the words, so masterful. I mean, look, one thing that was really interesting, Raghu, is that using the music to work with Ram Dass recordings now, suddenly the pauses and the spaces in his speech become an asset. And all this, and because of that, you know, now his little phrases, you fit them in rhythmically to the music. You're not rearranging them. You're just putting them in the rhythm. He comes to life. And it's like, it's such a great use of technology, this one being music, to transmit this guy's work. Because, you know, we'd sit there, as you know, and he would say, I would ask a question and he'd go for like half an hour. And my brain's trying to just stay on the ground and follow and think. And I'm thinking about other things, and I'll come back and yada, yada. And then I'd put it all together, and it was like 1 minute with this perfect arc, a beautiful opener, a tagline, a little bit of humor, poetry all over the place. And I was like, this guy is beyond a master, and he's fully awake going on, he's fully present on what he wants to say here. But once we put it inside the music, he's just there. He's just there.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. But you know what? We're talking about stuff that we need to hear a little bit of this. Okay?
Yeah. Why describe it? Yeah.
No, but what you said is profound and true. Okay. So like I used to have a radio show way back when. It's how I met Ram Dass. People who listen to Mindrolling, if they listen to the first couple of episodes, they will hear that story. But it was a free-form radio station, which meant it's kind of like what KCRW Morning Becomes Eclectic is to some degree, although nowhere near. I mean, we were Hendrix to Coltrane to instrumental jazz. I mean, we really ran the gamut, whatever you were feeling. So this is what I'm feeling, okay? And so the first song on our playlist
DJ Markus, here we go.
is called Mind Karma. So let's listen to Mind Karma, and then you'll fill us in on what that meant to you and how it did come.
Featuring Trevor Hall on this guy. It's the one singing in the background.
Oh yes,
yeah,
and he's our brother, Trevor. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so here you go, Mind Karma.
Our karma is our mind. And the mind stands in the way of a clear view of God. Our minds give us clouded perceptions. This incarnation has in it individuality. Individualism leads to war and anger and insecurity and fear. Our karma is our mind. Our karma is our mind. The mind stands in the way of a clear view of God. minds give us clouded perceptions.
And I'm with, I tell Trevor Hall, okay, but he's not Trevor Hall to me. I'm sorry. Maybe, am I going to be divulging secrets?
No, there's no secrets.
There's no
what secrets
right?
do I have?
Nothing.
I don't have any secrets.
Ram Priya is his
Ram Priya.
name. So, beloved of Ram, and Ram is that divine presence that's within everybody and is without everybody. It's just here. So, and my name, Raghu, is really a nickname. And I've never said this before on the podcast. I'm going to hear about
I'm
this.
bringing it out of you.
Yeah, it's Ragvindra Das, which Vindra means Lord. And Raghu, Rag is Raghu,
Lord of Rag.
and it's Raghu is the race of the sun, and it means servant of Ram. Ram Priya is beloved of Ram.
Yeah, so basically what you're trying to say is, I'm beloved to you.
That's it. I knew there was a point to this.
I just wanted to simplify it. Yeah. I am your beloved.
Yes. And that's the only way I think of it. And listen, Trevor's been here before, but it's been a while, they told me.
Yeah, a long
couple
time.
of years. And so I guess just to refresh, so you get an idea of how this all happened, Trevor, Priya, and my brother Sam. My father had a kid like way late in life, and they went to school in California together, a special arts school, and they got to be friendly, and they're both interested in music and doing music and art and so on. So I'm doing a quick version of this, okay? So you can correct me anytime. But,
no, you're good.
You went in and out of his room, and there was a big picture there of this older man. You knew that his father was an older man, so it makes sense, or a grandfather. And you knew that his father was older. So you said,
I think I did.
But every time you looked by it, it was, wow, that's something interesting. And you said, hey, that's your dad, right, Sam? And Sam went, what? No, that's nothing to do with my dad. That's our family guru. And that was the beginning of the end, I would call it. The beginning of like,
that was the door
just opened.
That was walking through the door,
Yeah. So, of course, then I met him because of my brother, met Trev. And then that's been quite a while ago.
That was a while ago.
You said you were what, 18 or something, right?
Probably, definitely.
Definitely. Maybe
18.
even 17.
I was going to say, maybe even 17, yeah.
So it's been a long time, and we share that great love of music, and I share a great love of what transmits through you, I'll tell you that. So anybody who doesn't know, will be plenty of links up there. And you know what? Wait. So a little bit of a premise here before we even talk about anything, because if I'm going to be talking to an artist and a musician and people don't know who that is, they're missing everything, because the soul of what is there so prominently in what you, so transparently in what you do. And I want, so Trevor has a song called My Own. It's one of the songs that was part of our Ram Dass Soul Land music series, and he did an acoustic version of it, and which is really special, and it's live, so it's a wonderful live thing.
Yeah, and it was It was in the living room of my wife's parents' house.
That's right. You were traveling at the time, so it can happen anywhere. So, but what it expresses. And I'll get you to explain it out a little bit, because it's really
sure.
I'm going to surprise you with something I found that I think you'll enjoy that relates to this song in particular. Absolutely does. So we're going to play My Own. This will be on the new compilation from Soul Land Records, brought to you by Love Serve Remember Foundation. And there's 10 or 11 or 12 tracks on it that represent what we did last fall. And, of course, Kornfield Trevor Hall will be one of them, Krishna Das, and onward and forward from there. Plenty of wonderful, wonderful music. So here is a track from the album, My Own, Trevor Hall.
I don't want you to be a stranger. I just want to call you my own. My own. I don't want you to be a stranger. I want to be tied to your soul. Your soul. When you call, I come running. I tell you I waste no time. I will meet you in the sacred, beyond the borders of the mind. No more building up these walls now. I will break them down with sound. Oh, I am open, let it be spoken. Big as the ocean. Oh, my love, it knows no bounds. Yeah, I don't want you to be a stranger. I just want to call you my own. My own. I don't want you to be a stranger. I want to be tied to your soul.
Okay, now you got to say, the crux of how My Own came to be. And I know, since I do know, I want to hear from you.
Yeah. This song in particular was really greatly inspired by the words of Sri Sharda Devi, who was affectionately referred to as the Holy Mother. And she was the wife of a great Bengali mystic, Indian mystic named Sri Ramakrishna. She's a huge influence on my life and this and that. And one of the things that she said instructed, I guess, in one's relationship towards spirit or the divine is that thing, right? That space, whatever you want to call it, is
that thing
is
there,
one's
I
very
call
own. That thing, that thing there.
Yeah.
I just pray to that thing. That it's one's very own. And she stressed this point more than once, that to be one's very own is the most intimate of relationships. And this, I think, when we refer to God or these big ideas of the Great Spirit, it sometimes feels quite far away. It feels like this gigantic kind of thing. And so it was really radical for me to hear this from her. And not only just hearing it from her, but also just the way she explained it, the way she put it forth, this idea of one's very own, to be one's very own. Just such love and motherly, just, power. and she would also kind of instruct a lot of her, disciples and devotees to pray in this way, like, to pray to be one's very own and like this. And when I heard this, of course it was so beautiful, but I also felt so like, oh, well, I don't know if I feel that exactly. I want that, I want to be, one's very own like this. And I want you to be my very own, So that song was just kind of created in that spirit of longing. And this longing is kind of the, one of the magic elements, I think, in spiritual life. It's something that's a lot of emphasis is put upon that longing in the tradition of Sarada Devi and Thakur. So, it was really greatly inspired by her, and it's something that I think about, all the time. And I think all of us do experience that feeling with different relationships, different kind of almost reflections, like in our human relationships and this. But to feel that with, something that we don't necessarily see or, I don't know, talk to directly, to have that intimacy with that thing is I think just so incredible. And so it was just kind of really birthed from that, her words. Yeah.
I have one more poem for you.
From
Basavana is the saint who wrote these poems.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to play a kirtan that you did
very nice.
Years ago to Mother, which is something beloved to me personally. And but we're going to. So I'm going to read the poem, and then this is a little TMI. But we're going to then say goodbye, and then we're going to, everybody listening out there, hang in and listen and just have the beauty of this wonderful track from Trevor, from Ram Priya. This is Ram Priya. Trevor was doing something else that day.
True that.
All right, here it is. Can there be devotion in words and more words? Can there be devotion unless the body is spent, unless the heart is spent, unless the wealth is spent? The Lord of the meeting rivers plays tricks with you until your bones stick out. Can there be devotion unless you stand his play? Can there?
Gosh.
That, to me, is like the highest poem I've read.
Oh, my gosh.
I hadn't read this book in a long time. And I went through because I wanted to share some of this with you, and that one.
Oh, my God.
That's the be-all, end-all. Hey, thank you so much.
Oh, this was just so good. I missed you so much.
I know. It's
I missed you. So thanks so much for having me. It's always such a pleasure.
And everybody, of course, you'll get linked up to the record and the songs, and be able to look at the tour schedule so you can say hi to Ram
please
when
do.
he's out there. And we will be back next week. This is Raghu from Mindrolling on Be Here Now Network. Go to BeHereNowNetwork.com. By the way, Ram Priya, guess who we now have on the network? Alan Watts.
No way.
Yeah.
That's
his son
awesome.
Mark, and we put something together that he's
that's
introducing
so cool.
talks that haven't been around for like 40 years.
Oh, that's just so, you guys are just crushing it.
Yeah, so we're really, really
That's
happy
wonderful.
about that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome.
And everybody look out for go to ramdas.org and BeHereNowNetwork.com and put your email in so you can get notifications, and particularly about this compilation that's coming out, the Soul Land compilation, with Ram Priya, Trevor on it, and a bunch of other wonderful, wonderful people. So thank you again, and we'll see you next
thank you so
week.
much.
Namaste.
Ram Ram.
Namaste.
Yeah.
Jagadodarini Mata Durga Jagadodarini Ma Jagadodarini Mata Durga Jagadodarini Ma Jago Jago Ma Jago Jago Ma Jago Jago Ma Janani Hey Gauri Devi Rana Chandi Devi Jaya Gauri Devi Rana Chandi Devi Jaya Shiva Ramana Jagoma 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 Jagadodarini Mata Durga Jagadodarini Ma Jagadodarini Mata Durga Jagadodarini Ma Jago Jago Ma Jago Jago Ma Jago Jago Ma Janani Jago Jago Ma Jago Jago Ma Jago Jago Ma Janani Hey Gauri Devi Rana Chandi Devi Jaya Gauri Devi Rana Chandi Devi Jaya Shiva Ramana Jagoma 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 Jagadodarini Mata Durga Jagadodarini Ma Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, just Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, just Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya 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 Sitaram, Sitaram. Sitaram, Sitaram, Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram, 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 Jaya Jaya Sitaram. Shri Rama 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 Rama. Shri Rama 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 Rama. Shri Rama 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 Rama. Shri Rama 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 Rama. Shri Rama 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 Rama. Shri Rama 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 Rama. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Shri 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 Aksat Shri Neem Karoli Sant Guru Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri 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 Aksat Shri Shri Siddhi Mai Ki Jai. Shiva Shiva Mahadeva Namah Shivaya Sada Shiva 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 Durga Durga Mahamaya Nama Durgaya Namo Namo 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 Kali Kali Mahamata Nama Kali Ke 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 Namo Namo Namakali ke namo namo Kali Kali Mahamata 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 Namakali ke namo namo Shiva Shiva Mahadeva Namah Shivaya Sada Shiva 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram 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 Shri Ram Ram Shri Ram Om Namo Gurudev Bhavanim Karoli Om Namo Gurudev Bhavanim Karoli Om Namo Gurudev Bhavanim Karoli Om